Hey y'all, it's your girl Jada, Rayne, and welcome back to season 2 of No Brew Shit. And now we're back. Definitely a different kind of setup than we're normally used to having, but I'm really excited to have you guys back for season 2. And today we're going to be talking about something very important to me. We're talking about police brutality, violence against black bodies. This is an important conversation for us to have, especially with what's going on in the world right now, what's always been going on in the world. No Brew Shit, if you're not familiar with what we do over here, is all about providing a platform for women of color and really anybody to just express, their concerns, their perspectives, and opinions on a myriad of issues. And so today I have on a couple of lovely guests via Zoom, of course, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and we're going to hop right in.
So my name is Sydney. I am a IU grad, born and raised in Indiana, go 219, and I currently coach middle school sports.
Okay, Destiny. I graduated from Cal State Fullerton. I'm a speech therapist, so I'm going back to grad school, and I'm from Los Angeles, so.
Okay. So we're gonna have two different perspectives here, which I really like from different areas. So I think that'll really help the conversation. As you guys are probably already familiar with what's going on in the news, what's been going on in the news. And so first, I just kind of want to start out with how are you guys doing? Where is your head at when you're looking at all of these things that's coming on our feed, that's coming on the TV? Just generally, how are you doing?
I've kind of taken the step back approach right now. Kind of just throw myself into my life and working and stuff like that. Because sometimes it gets to be a lot, especially with being in quarantines. You really have no choice but to be informed because it's all over social media, it's all over the news, everywhere you turn. There's another act of violence against a Black individual in this world, and literally all over the world, and it's crazy.
Right.
I would definitely agree with that. I think when everything first started popping off, during quarantine with the George Floyd movement and just political culture right now in general, I think I was no, this isn't right, and I just hopped right in. Excuse me. And so after that, I just felt really overwhelmed. So after hopping right in and talking to my friends and organizing protests, I just got exhausted because it's always something. Everywhere we turn, like she said, it's always going to be the next, and it's sad, and it's just overwhelming to a point where you just feel so I think that I'm doing a lot better now, after I took a little step back and be I can't end this by myself, Mm-hmm. So I think having that balance is really important.
Yeah, I think it's important, and we're going to touch more on that a little bit later too. And like you said, it feels like it's this never-ending cycle, right? We keep going through the same thing over and over again. And I think a lot of times we attribute that. We go back and we say, oh, it started with Trayvon Martin, but no, it started way before that. But I do want to kind of get into, we remember Black Lives Matter really coming to a head during the Trayvon Martin case. And then, I don't know, we've seen this evolution of it now. And I kind of want to talk to you guys about how have we seen this movement kind of change throughout the years from Trayvon to now? What changes do you guys see in the movement, or just in general, the way that this particular issue is being treated?
I think that when Trayvon Martin happened, especially our generation, me personally, I was very young. And I just remember not understanding the gravity of the situation. Of course, I understood what happened. That was very unfortunate. I don't think I understood the systematic role that played into that happening and him being allowed to just get off George Zimmerman. So just face no consequences, basically. And I just really didn't understand the gravity and how we got there and how that was fair, So I think now being able to articulate and understand exactly what it is, because I'm older now, I think that I have more of a hands-on approach, and I understand how this is a systematic thing. It's not just one unfortunate thing that happened. It's very systematic. It's very intentional, in my opinion, the violence that we experience as Black people. So I think that it's just like, it has me more intrigued to like get in there and stop it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What about you, Sydney?
I mean, like, I definitely agree with everything Destiny just said. You know, when the whole Trayvon Martin situation happened, I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, I kind of like remember everything that happened because, like, you know, it was a topic of conversation for all of us. Um, and at that point, that was like the age when I finally like started to realize, you know, certain people are going to discriminate me based off the color of my skin. Like, I've heard of it before, you know, we've heard of like Emmett Till and things like that, but it was never something that like hit so close to home because I mean, he was around my age.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between like back then and now even is just the fact that, you know, our generation, we are the ones who aren't really taking a back seat to anything. Like, we're very outspoken, we're very, like she said, hands-on, you know. Even like my mom said at one time, when everything with George Floyd was going on, she was saying like out of everybody within our immediate family, she was like the less threat because my generation is militant, and then like my dad and my three brothers, they're Black men in this world. So like if anyone's gonna do something, like she's the one who would pose like less of a threat because she knows I'm the type of person I'm gonna, you know, talk back to somebody about something. You know, if they come across me crazy.
Yeah.
Um like definitely, like, you know, especially with the use of social media now, it's everywhere. It's like right there in your face. There's no hiding. You're getting every detail of it. People are even catching these things on Facebook Live and Instagram Lives. You know, so like there's no denying what's going on. Even like with the police wearing body cams now, you know, they're using it as evidence, and even using it as evidence that they're scooping under, you know, the table. And
Yeah.
it's a lot, but you
Yeah.
know, it's definitely that, you know, that step that we need for people to say like, hey, this is going on. We can't
Right.
just, you know, chalk it up to it being the usual anymore. There needs to be a change.
Yeah. And I think the overall reception has changed because I just remember, and not to say that the movement hasn't been demonized by white America still, but I think in the beginning more so. And it's like now you look at these protests and there are a lot more, you see a lot more people of different colors, different ethnicities, like coming together and like protesting. So that I feel like the overall reception has changed drastically from the start. And then even for you to bring up social media, like, I don't know, it worries me because I feel like, so we're kind of going to get into that and I'm going to pose that question for you guys, but you know, are people really being supportive in the way that they say they're being supportive just because they're showing certain things on social media? And I kind of want to get into that with you guys. Like, what are some of the positive and negative effects we see of social media, you know, impacting this particular movement?
I think you hit on a big, like, that's my biggest thing. That I don't think social media should be end all be all. Like, you post something, like how that whole Black Square thing was going around, and I was just like, yeah, but are y'all signing petitions? Are y'all like, you know, organizing with your friends to really like spread information that's really going on? Like, okay, a Black Square, it's not really going to help us in the justice system. It's not really going to help us reform, like, you know, all these things. So I think that a Black Square, this is just my example that I'm going to harbor on, is very, sometimes can be performative, especially for people that have more of a platform like influencers or celebrities and stuff like that. I think for you to just post a Black Square and just go on about your life and not really do anything, it's kind of just like, okay, like you're doing it so people know that you're thinking of it or what, like, you know, it's kind of performative. But at the same time, I'm not a believer that everything has to be on social media. So I always go back and forth. Like, I think now that we have social media, like how she was saying earlier, you're able to see exactly what happened. You can't hide it. You don't see it from the news. Like, you see it real time, and that can be overwhelming, especially for people that identify as Black. And it's just like, whoa, I don't need to see all that violence against Black bodies, but they can't go on the news and be like, that didn't happen, because we're seeing it happen. So I think that's one of the positives of just getting information out there.
Yeah.
It's real information from people that have really experienced it, that are there in the city, that were there at the event, whatever. It's happening. But at the same time, I think people use it as a, like a performance thing, where it's just like, well, I'm a part of this, like, let me just post this and go. And it's like, no, this is real life things. It's not just a social media trend. It's not just a hashtag. These are things that are happening and people are getting killed and we need to do something.
I agree. I agree. And to kind of add to that, like even with the Black Square, and then I noticed too, like I don't know if you look at people's like you go on people's Instagram bios and you have your saved stories, and now people have like a Black Lives Matter saved story little circle, and you just have to wonder like what are the, like you said, what are the intentions behind that? But I also feel like, are we, once something happens, we're posting all this information and then it kind of dies down. Like you see that people stop spreading awareness, people stop spreading, different resources and stuff like that. It's like we post in that moment, and then after a while, you see people don't post about it ever again, don't talk about it ever again, and don't keep that conversation going.
Right, because but
No,
protests are still going on to this day.
yeah,
Like about George Floyd, about like Black Lives Matter, about things that are happening around that time that everything popped off. But you don't see that on the news. You don't really see it on your timeline. Maybe a video once a month, but they're still going on today. Like they have not stopped since it popped off. So where is that coverage?
Right. I feel that. Did you have anything to add, Sydney?
I really do. I love that you brought up that Black Square thing because I'm definitely one of the ones who participate in but like for the right reasons and knowing why, like the reason behind it. Because some people are like, yeah, post a Black Square and then don't do anything else. Don't use social media. Don't do that. Like, no, that's not the purpose behind it. You're supposed to share everything.
Right.
Black business related, Black lives related. Just like don't participate in anything else. But a lot of people kind of like saw, like you said, like social media being like an end all be all, and also just thinking like, oh, if they're not posting on social media about it, then they don't really care. They're not paying attention to it. They're doing this and that. And I'm just like, we don't have to be exposed to this 24/7 and have to like participate ourselves in order to prove to you that I'm doing the right thing or like I'm educated on it. Like
Right.
there's no missing it. It's in my face, especially during quarantine where at this point nobody's leaving the house except for to protest or if they absolutely have to work.
Yeah.
Because I know like at one point a friend of mine, she was posting about forex because that's what she does, and that's the thing, she's trying to build her business, and somebody had commented on one of her posts and like, how dare you out here trying to scam somebody and Black people are being killed and da da da. I'm just like, what? Not knowing, because she didn't post to social media because she didn't have to.
Right.
She's donated half of the stuff that she's made in the market that week to um, various funds for people who are being locked up during these protests,
Right.
for the families that are being affected by it. Like, just, you don't have to post to social media just to prove to the world that you are up to date on everything that's going on. And that was like the big thing that's like the negative of social media, because people are like, oh, but if you're not posting, then
You're not
what are you
doing.
really doing? Yeah.
Yep.
And it's absolutely crazy.
It is crazy because I feel like activism comes in different forms. Like we don't all fight things in the same way, and I think that's okay. That kind of brings me to, I kind of want to touch back on that influencer celebrity thing, because I think you see that a lot with like celebrity culture, and to where we see that I think a lot of times we get upset if they're not speaking out. So I don't know if you guys saw, like recently, we saw the Beyonce thing with SARS, and them being upset with her for not, speaking out, especially because she's worked with a lot of artists that have, are from Nigeria. So I guess my question to you guys is, should we look to these particular celebrities to, or influencers, yeah, they're posting these things, but should we look to them to do that?
I feel like I'm straddle the fence on that one because, like how you say, you can't tell anybody how how to be an activist. They're going to be an activist how they want to. I would like to believe as Black people, because we can't escape it, because we experience it in our personal lives, even if we don't post about it, it's like we're giving in some type of way, whether that's financial, whether that's just like educational, having conversations with people, because we have to do that anyway. We have to explain ourselves all the time. So I think that celebrities sometimes should post because they have a big platform, and just get the word out there, even if they're not posting like exactly what I'm doing. Like even if it was just a, this is SARS, this is what's going on, like just so you know, because I have millions of followers. I think it's, I go back and forth because it's like, should they be responsible for that? Like, it's not one of their responsibilities, but people in your culture look up to you because you are this figurehead of a culture. And like, you know, especially when it goes to like white people and stuff like that, like people outside of the movement, outside of the culture might really not know what's going on because they don't have to deal with it. So if you have a following that can reach those people, I think it's kind of important just to put the news out there, even if you're not posting that you're like hosting a fundraiser or you're donating $1 million. I think it's just important to put the information out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you hit the nail. I kind of go back and forth also, but I think the biggest thing is, and this might be a controversial statement, but I still feel like the responsibility falls on us. So yeah, a celebrity is posting something, but I don't think we should look to celebrities solely for that information only. And I feel like that becomes the problem. We rely so much on social media and these celebrities posting about something instead of taking the extra step and being more informed to go read up and learn about these things and form our own opinion. And that's the thing that I worry about the most, is that we can't just form the opinion based on, you know, what a celebrity or influencer is posting. You know, we've got to go out and find that information for ourselves. So that's kind of my little thing with that.
I mean, I definitely agree with all of that because, you know, like they do have that platform. They do have millions to thousands of followers. And, you know, some of the followers are not that educated on what's going on because, you know, they might not follow a lot of news sources or might not follow a lot of Black people in general. Because, like you said, like we do have allies of all races and ethnicities. And, you know, following a certain celebrity might be that tipping point that gets them to, you know, become aware of what's happening outside of their own state, outside of their own country.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I do agree with what you said, Jada, about how it falls on us because, you know, even like with some of our kids, like they're not on, some people still aren't on social media, or they have like very limited access to what they have on social media. Cause like I was even talking to my volleyball team a couple weeks ago, and they had mentioned When They See Us on Netflix and about the Exonerated Five. And I had a conversation with them about it. Like, of course, you know, I wasn't getting like in depth into like my true feelings, but I mean, I stuck to the facts and, you know, let them know what was going on, kind of filled in some blanks for those who hadn't watched the series yet. And like stuff like that is very important.
Yeah.
You know, so even if you're not like as a celebrity, even if they're not, you know, showing like their exact stance, they should at least, you know, present the facts because that could be a huge deciding factor on who's watching, who's listening, because they do have these younger kids who are watching them. And that kind of shapes them from the bottom up. Because if you would have saw me in like high school, even like middle school, I was, you know, I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't particularly sheltered, but I wasn't really immersed in everything that was going on in the world. And it took college to open up my eyes some. And so if you were able to even get like some of these younger kids, especially like Generation Z, who are like all on TikTok and everything, getting them like truly educated, especially in an election year at that, with a huge controversial president that we've had the past 4 years.
I'm talking about celebrity responsibility. If you guys had seen like the Ice Cube contract, Black America contract, what were your guys' thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of people feel like, you know, celebrities should not involve themselves in political matters.
Celebrities such as Ice Cube and the like, 50 Cent, whoever, are sometimes seen as the Black thought. And that's what I don't like. It's like so many times Black people are just grouped in a monolith. So anybody that has a little popularity, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's 50 Cent, whether it's Ice Cube, whether it's P. Diddy, sometimes they're just seen as, well, Black people should do this. And it's like, you're really removed from my situation, sir. So I would not like you to speak on my situation, you know? So it's like, appreciate your opinion, but it's an opinion, not a fact, not nothing. Like, you shouldn't be telling us, people still haven't made it, like you have, Mr. Long Money Sir, that what we should be doing. So that's like just it. I think too many times people are seen, like Black people are seen as just a group and not individuals that happen to look alike. Like, you know, so.
Mm-hmm.
I think celebrities have to understand, like you were just saying, you do have a big platform. So I think it's important for them to kind of understand you have to be careful with what you say with your voice, being in the public eye like that. And it's not to say that they can't have an opinion, but I think they have to realize that a lot of times these politicians are using them to pander to us.
Exactly.
You know, and so, you know, you got to be really careful about what kind of information you're putting out there and, you know, in what way. So I agree with that. I agree with that.
And it's not even just like the politicians, like it's even those who like who are like anti-Black Lives Matter or like super pro-Trump. Like they take any little detail they can that works in their favor and they just run with it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care like what the rest of the, if it was a tweet, they don't care what the rest of the sentence was. If it's a one small detail, they're gonna take that one small detail and they're gonna run with it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Kind of to backtrack a little bit, I know we kind of got off topic, but I definitely want to make sure we touched on this a little bit, was do we feel like Black Lives Matter has become a little bit more inclusive? Are we protecting Black women within Black Lives Matter more so than we did in the beginning? Is it more inclusive of LGBTQ plus, our brothers and sisters? How do you guys feel about that?
See, that one is hard.
It is hard.
Because like, you know, it's like some of those big conversations that are happening on Twitter and tweets go viral for it. And, you know, you're seeing a lot of support for Black women, a lot of support for those in the LGBTQ plus community. But then you also, you know, still see those comments where people are overwhelmingly, you know, saying, oh, well, this goes against this or this goes against that, or, you know, find some little thing to pick at that just kind of goes against everything that everybody else is saying. And that's the thing about social media, because literally like billions of people are on this thing. So you just, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot.
I would definitely agree with what you said. I think that, like I said, I was young when it first kind of like hit a spearhead. So I don't really know how that was. I think growing up as a Black woman, I just would like to see as much effort as we like say his name. We know Trayvon Martin, we know George Floyd, we know Eric like Gardner, we know all these names, but we have what, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, and then you start to get quiet. And it's like, but you just named 10 men that, you know, it's happened up to over this whole time. So it's just like, I don't know. I think it is slowly starting to be a conversation that is really held and people are realizing, oh yeah, like let me talk about this more too. And I see like the discrepancy. But I've also talked to people, and when we talk about our LGBTQ family, like I've seen people say like that distracts the movement. And I'm like, talking to them, I'm like, this is the movement. Like this is the movement. And they're just like, no, that distracts from the movement. We don't need to put everybody in there. Like, you know, like they have their own fight. Or like I've seen some people when it comes to like rights saying like, well, I'm Black first and people can hide whatever they want to hide, like behind closed doors, that's their business. And I'm like, listen to what you're saying, you know? So it's just like, I think with Black women, we have been more inclusive because our trans family, I think they get left out. I talk to many people and they often can't even name 2 names for our trans family or our LGBTQ plus community. Yeah. So I think, and they're getting killed more than people that are not in that community. So I think that's really interesting when I see like they're getting just left out the movement. And then when they are left in the movement, they get put in with so many like boundaries and ridicules. So I think it's just like, I don't know if our LGBTQ plus community has received the love that they need to when it comes to our movement. And I think that Black women are starting to really receive that love. So
I agree with that, and I feel like whenever you do see like somebody trans who has been murdered, if you see it, it ain't on mainstream media. If you see it, it's a maybe one or two posts that you see in your timeline that went viral. But even then, like you said, it's not to the same magnitude that you hear the name George Floyd. And even when I think about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, when we're talking about the movement, now the first name that most people mention is George Floyd. They don't mention Breonna Taylor first. And that saddens me. But like you said, I think that we're getting to a point where we're having these conversations and it's starting to improve. But yeah, it makes you sad because you feel like we've got to protect, like you said, it's all of us. We're all in it. It's not just one person matters more than the other as far as like, women, trans people within our community. We're all Black. Another thing I was going to kind of touch on was, because we talked about social media a little bit, and since we're talking about Breonna Taylor, kind of like this memification that kind of happened with her via social media. I felt like that was really, I don't know, it started where it felt like, okay, a lot of people arguing that it was bringing awareness to her case and what happened to her. But then it started to feel like this weird joke, like people were just sprinkling it on a caption like parsley or something, like an afterthought. And that really bothered me, the way it was just like, anyways, Breonna Taylor. It kind of felt like making a mockery to me, but I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. Do you feel like it was helpful or you think it was harmful?
I don't even say if it was helpful or harmful. It was just like when you're confused and you're just like, I don't know. Yeah. I think it started with good intentions. Because I think it started with good intentions. I think people started to get distracted by the outside world with quarantine. Of course, like I think like the redirection to Breonna Taylor was a good intention. And then it just started to be like, people would just talk about pizza and they'd be like, anyways, Breonna Taylor. And I was like, what? Like, can we just like actually do something? Because like, that is a serious thing. We don't need to just be like, just putting it out there for like fun or like laughs or like just to lighten. I don't know what, like, it got it kind of like, what is going on? Like with this whole hashtag Breonna Taylor, like, this is a serious person that really was like alive and got murdered for no reason. So can we not just like throw her name out there just to throw her name out there? So it just got to be too much, I think, in my personal opinion. But I do think it started with good intention. I think so too. Sydney?
I do like how you said like how it sprinkled like parsley. Because that's kind of like how it was. Because like what it reminds me of when it be like, anyways, Breonna Taylor, like that's something like we used to do like when we were younger. Like I'm from the Chicagoland area, so it always be like, to diffuse something, or if it was like an awkward moment, like, so what about them bears or what about those bulls? So like saying something like that, like when I first started to see like the memes and stuff like that, it definitely like rubbed me the wrong way. I do agree with what Destiny said about like, it kind of kept her name like going, and in a way still got people talking about her, but it was good intentions. But I think the actual effect of it kind of got away from the purpose. And it just, I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it.
I wasn't feeling it. And I think, to clarify, I don't even feel like the issue came within our own community. I felt like when people with platforms, influencers, stuff like that, started to pick up that anyways, Breonna Taylor, that's when it started to feel really inauthentic to me. And that's when I feel like if you're going to, my biggest issue with that was, if you're going to say that, then reorient us to information. Send us somewhere for more information or something. If you're going to just, you know what I mean? Instead of just saying it.
On a random picture that had nothing to do with anything.
Right.
So another question I have for you guys is what we have social media, and we're talking a lot about police brutality here. What about, I wanted to touch back on SARS. Why do you feel like us as Black Americans here, don't seem as concerned with what's going on in SARS? I think we are via social media, but why do you think we feel that disconnect of like not being as informed about police brutality going on right now with SARS?
I just kind of feel like just like Americans in general are, for lack of a better word, a bit selfish in a way. Mm-hmm. Like we we kind of tend to focus on what's happening here.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize that, you know, when everything blew up with George Floyd and everything during quarantine, like there were still people in other countries who were having their own protest because they recognized the injustices that were happening. And I'm not saying that all of us are kind of just ignoring everything that's going on with SARS, but I think a lot of people like are saying, in a way, you know, if it's not happening here, if it's nothing that I can personally access within a quick flight or a quick drive or anything like that, then, you know, if I can't do anything, why do I need to pay attention as much, you know? I don't know. It's one of those things where if it's not happening here, I feel like people aren't as affected by it. Like, you know, if it doesn't affect them directly or it doesn't hit as close to home as a lot of the stuff that's been happening in the past few months has, then they feel like they can't do anything, you know?
Right.
I would definitely agree, because that was my biggest thing. Like, if it's not, and it's the same thing with the Black Lives Matter movement here. I think sometimes when it doesn't affect someone, they kind of just be like, "That's really sad," and keep it pushing. And it's just like, no, we can do something about that. We can ask whoever it is happening to, like, how can we help? And I think that's our biggest thing that we can do at this moment. If you're not spreading information, make sure your information is viable. I think a lot of time it is watered down when it comes to like whether it's Black Americans versus like other struggles that are going on in other countries, because we might not know. One, because it's never really put in the news, like, you know, how grand it should be. Two, are we really going out of our way to deal with other problems, and we still have so much racism, so many things here to change? I think it gets overwhelming, but they were helping us fight. I think it's only respectable that we do the same thing. So I would definitely say, like, if you see a hashtag, if you see anything, Congo's bleeding, like, you know, just like all these things are going on. And I think that if you do see something, just reach out to that person that posted it, or reach out to someone that might be actually experiencing it in that country or whatever, and say, how can you help? Is it donations? Is it petitions? Is it calling a person of authority's office and like requesting something? Whatever taxes need to be done to get it to be done, if that makes sense. So I think we do sometimes ignore other people's problems because I feel like it's either we don't have the information correctly, and we're not trying to go out of our way to be like overwhelmed because our problems are too much already.
So kind of just to pick back up with SARS, I don't know. I also think that, like you said, Destiny, it's not having not having the background information on that particular issue. And I think there's, because I've been trying to do my own research, because I'm going to be honest, like I'm not super well versed in everything that has to do with SARS. Like I know the basics, but when I was doing some research on it, there's such a historical context there too, like the way, government is set up, that kind of thing. So I think it's really hard, like you said, Sydney, kind of touching on what you said, being from a different country and being able to connect all the way. I think, just showing your support and trying to be as supportive as you can is really, what you can do. So I agree with that. But yeah, there's such a strong historical context that I didn't realize until I actually went and did like my own research. So most
And I definitely love what Destiny said about when somebody posts something about it, especially someone who's from that country, like reaching out and asking, what can you do? Because that's something I probably would have never like thought to do. Because I'm just like, I don't want to be sliding around in people's DMs. Like as an awkward, like, and that's the thing with social media. Like, so many people are out there and they're open to giving you this information. All you have to do is ask. It's literally right at your fingertips, literally. So that's I really love that. I never thought of that, and that's something that I'm definitely going to start doing, and everybody should be doing.
I think so too, because we want that reciprocated on our end. Like we want, when things happen here, we want people to reach out to us and ask us how we can help. So I agree. I mean,
exactly.
Others do what you would want for them to do for you.
And I think, like, going back to the whole influencing thing, I think I had seen the hashtag in SARS for like a little bit, but I didn't really understand what was going on. And then Jackie Aina actually posted a whole like, here's what's going on. This is why you need to end everything. Like, you know, and this is really what's going on. And like, I actually pay attention to a lot of her content. I think that she's like not somebody I look up to, but like just important Black woman that I just like to like tune in with. So when she was posting about it, I know that she's educated. She's very like informative about like her platform. She's very hands on. I was just like, in SARS, like she's posting about it. I've seen that a little bit, but I don't know what it is. So let me like read this. And she actually posted what SARS is and like what it stands for and like what is exactly going on, why we need to end it. And I was like, sounds like defund the police. So I'm with that. Like, you know, so I was just like, okay. And that's when I started like went to the hashtag like on Instagram in SARS, and I was just like reading everybody's posts, like, you know, like what do y'all want us to do? So I started kind of like reposting a little bit, like, and explaining exactly, like I posted like a sheet, whatever, picture that explained what SARS was and why people of Nigeria want to end it. So I was like, that makes sense. Like, you know, so yeah, I think social media can be helpful. And like, you know, how we talked about influencers earlier, I think that was definitely a great use of her platform.
I agree. That's why it's so hard. Like going back to what you said, it's so hard to decide whether or not should we expect them to speak out or not? Because like you said, I mean, you're a great example of somebody that saw something on somebody's social media and it made you want to look into it further. So it's so hard. Like you said, I'm in the middle too, because I see both sides of it. But like I said earlier, I think just being able to like, you did the extra step. That's the thing. So you saw it on somebody's platform, but you did the extra step of let me find out more about it. And I think we've got to get to that place on our own is, yeah, whether a celebrity posts about it or they don't post about it, when you see something on a platform, taking that extra step to go understand on your own. So I think that's a great example. For sure, for sure. I guess like when we're talking about how do you make change, because we're talking about like how, reaching out and asking people how to make change, in other places, but even here, like sometimes, and to be honest, it's hard because you feel like, can we ever dismantle systematic oppression? Like that's such a heavy thing that's been on my mind lately, even with this upcoming election. When I think about no matter who we have in there, it's like, will we be able to, dismantle that? Will we be able to solve all these issues and problems that we've been having for years and years on end? And like, what can we do?
Yeah, that's a really good thing because that's something that I actually thought about myself this past summer. Because, like, you hear a lot of things about the minority becoming the majority in America.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have things where, families are being detained and deported to just Mexico just because, even if they're not from there, just because the president can.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that is kind of what hinders that. But if we can actually like get, the minority to become the majority and, have, I'm trying to put this into good words. So I feel like with politics, it's messy for like the most part. It's super messy. And with that, it just complicates things that could just be so simple.
Yeah.
And, I feel like this is like one of those things that we can move from, but with all these obstacles in the way, it's proven to be impossible, especially like when history repeats itself, we can't fully move forward without taking 50 steps back first.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I would say that one of your opening questions was like, how are you doing? And I think that fact alone, that actually ending or reforming things impacted how I was doing, how I interpreted the movement, how I interacted with the movement. I think because when you think about like, okay, yes, I'm leading a protest, like, yes, I'm doing these things locally. But on a grand scheme of things, it feels like nothing's changing. Yeah. And I think that really discouraged me because it's scary to think about nothing changing. Obviously, we have come a long way, so things have changed. But like from year to year, from 4 years ago when Mr. 45 was like elected, like, have things change with our people, with how we're seen in the media, how like all these things are happening. So I think on a grand scheme of things, it's kind of scary, but like how I was saying on a local level, when I was in high school, I was part of the Mayor's Youth Council, and I always brought up the fact that I'm from South LA, and like we're working in West LA, like, and I see these things, but I don't see them in my own community. I see where you're making changes here, but you're the mayor of all LA, not some parts of LA. And I don't see these things in my community when I go back home from working with you. So I think on a local level, if we bring those things up to like councilmen, to mayors, I think we'll see more of that trickle down. But I think it can be discouraging sometimes, at least to me. Um, we don't see those things happening on a grand scheme because they're not going to happen as fast, but they need to happen. And I feel like sometimes we don't see them happening. We just hear about it. Like we just hear the talk about it happening, but do we really see the effects of different laws getting passed or different movements and stuff like that? So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, for sure. I think sometimes something that gives me a peace of mind is I think about where our ancestors thought the same thing. They thought certain things were impossible, and they managed to get certain laws passed. They managed to fight against certain oppressive systems and, you know, make things so that we could have what we have now. But it's so hard sometimes to think that we can get past that where we are right now. It's so hard to think like that. Time are we at? 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Okay. I kind of want to kind of open this up for you guys. Is there anything that you guys really want to touch on, or anything that you feel like you didn't get to say, or you know, anything like that? Before I kind of go into like my closing questions.
I think we did talk about this. I think just harping on my last point, please participate in local level institutions, whether that's voting, whether that's just going to different meetings like council meetings in your city, letting that be known. Call your local office and letting that be known that you care as a citizen. I think that a lot of time, especially in our community that I have seen, we just kind of like know things are unfair and we just like, ugh. And like we kind of feel like there's nothing that we can do about it, but there is. Even if it's not on a grand scheme, even if it's not getting laws passed, even if it's not election year, like we can do things about this. We can make changes, even if it's only in your community. I think no small thing is too small. If it's your community needs to be cleaned up because they always leave people like just trash on the floor, like whatever it is. I think it can be better. If you think it can be better, please like just express your voice on a local level. Use your voice on social media, spread your information, make sure your information is right. If you want to talk about SARS, if you want to talk about Congo is bleeding, if you want to talk about whatever hashtag, like I said, reach out to those people that are living there or might have more information than you. And just, you know, Google is free. So just access Google and, you know, read about it. There's plenty of things on the internet free and at your disposal. So just do your research, spread information, even if you don't know exactly what. Spread facts. You don't always have to donate. Be an activist in your own way. Even if it's not donating, if it's not signing petitions, calling, like there's so many excuse me, there's so many like ways you can participate in the movement. It doesn't have to be one exact way. You don't always have to post it. So I think that's pretty much like what I really want to harbor on.
I love that.
And just to piggyback before I go to you, Sydney, I agree, like especially with coming into this upcoming election, don't let that be the end all be all. Don't let that vote just be where it stops, the stopping point. Whoever gets in office, whatever happens, hold their feet to the fire. Like you said, Destiny, make sure that, you know, you have that information so that, you know, we're checking them along the way. We're paying attention to what's going on the entire time, not just when, you know, election time is here. Go ahead, Sydney, if there's anything that you wanted to add.
I mean, I definitely love with this everything she said because she's the one. She got all of it, everything. But I definitely think like, you know, making sure that people have those conversations Even if you don't necessarily agree with people, if you have somebody in your life that, like you're friends with, or at least, you interact with on a normal basis, make sure you have those conversations. It doesn't have to necessarily be attacking somebody who thinks differently than you, but at least just opening up that, that line of communication where you at least discuss the facts. Just make sure the facts are being known. You don't really have to state your opinion. Just make sure that they, at the very least, educated.
Yeah, for sure. And the last question I kind of want to end on is just to bring it back to when I asked you guys, how are you guys doing today? What people can do to really, make sure that their mental health is in check with all the things that we're seeing. How do we take care of ourselves, fight this fight simultaneously?
I would like to think of the fight as a relay race. Um, it's very important because you're human, when you're fighting the fight, to take a step back if you need that. Like, please don't put so much weight on yourselves or like act like you're not doing enough. If you're tired, your teammate will carry on. I think that like having that relay race mindset is very important. That's how we know we're not all gonna tire out. Like, if you're tired, pass it to the next person. Even if it's not like literally, it's just like someone's always gonna be there. Like, if everybody rests at a certain point, we're gonna get the job done. If that makes sense. But if we're all going at one point, then we're all gonna get tired and just drop out. And it's just like it's not gonna go anywhere. But if we pass it to the next person when we get tired, I think that it's more effective that way. So if you need to take a step back from social media, from not watching the news, please don't feel guilty in that. I know that like when I was taking a step back, I was just like, no, like I feel like a bad person. Like I need to be involved. I need to be on the ground running. I need to like be doing my part. And it's just like I was mentally just exhausting myself because it's a lot to see people that look like you just getting murdered in the street endlessly. So I think take a step back. If you need to just go read a fun book, if you need to go color. There's no age limit on coloring. Just go color. Candles, like some candles, do it back. Just do whatever you need to do to feel like go to the beach, whatever. Get free. Whatever you have to do that so you don't tire out. And then once you feel like you've rested, pick back up. You don't have to pick it all back up. You can pick it back up in small chunks. So no small, like I said, no small thing is too small, whether it's donating $5 to people that, how you said earlier, Sydney, people that have been arrested or like are the families and something like that. Like, if donation's not your thing, sign a petition. It doesn't take like, that much energy to sign a petition, but rest when you need to, come back when you feel like you're ready.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. And also like setting boundaries, when you're talking to people, with social media, unless you just stay off the app, you can't really escape everything that's going on because people are going to post what they want to post. But like when it comes to having those conversations, like in person with your friends, or even family, just making sure you're letting them know ahead of time, like, hey, like I'm aware of what's going on, but I don't really want to talk about it right now. It's too much for me. Or even if you're sharing stuff with friends directly, like in a group chat or something, make sure you're putting like, hey, trigger warning if it's like a video or a picture, so they know, like, if it's not something they want to see right now, they can, just ignore that message or just pick it up whenever they're ready. For your mental health, I definitely said like establishing those boundaries, whenever you can, definitely helps out where you're not like overstimulating yourself with everything that's going on. Because people can have nightmares from seeing this stuff, especially when it's happening over and over and over. You know, you should be able to escape it when you need to, so that way you can get yourself together and not, harm yourself mentally or emotionally. Whether you're out there protesting yourself or organizing things in the background, or even just, gathering information, just to get yourself educated, you should definitely like establish those boundaries and make sure, you're keeping yourself in the same good spirit that you've always been in.
That concludes this episode of No Brew Shit. Stay tuned for another episode coming to you guys soon. I have a lot of great topics for this season, and I'm really excited. See y'all later. Bye.